Most of us have felt that sting when someone takes us for granted. A friend who never says thank you, a colleague who always relies on us but never offers support back, a family member who assumes our time is theirs to claim. It hurts, but before we rush into judgment, there's a deeper question we need to ask: why does this happen? People don't wake up in the morning thinking, today I'll take someone for granted. It's rarely intentional. More often, it comes from comfort. When someone has been a constant presence in their life, always showing up, always giving, always reliable, they begin to assume that presence is permanent. Like the sun rising every morning, they stop noticing it, not because it isn't remarkable, but because it feels guaranteed. Familiarity is another piece of the puzzle. When people see us in the same roles, always the helper, the fixer, the listener, they may unconsciously box us into that identity. It becomes invisible, like wallpaper in a room. You only notice when it's missing or damaged. Until then, it fades into the background, and so do we in their eyes. There's also habit. Humans are creatures of routine, and once we settle into patterns, they become hard to break. If someone is used to you carrying the heavier load, they may never stop to think about the weight you bear. Not because they don't care, but because they've been conditioned by repetition. What was once a favor becomes an expectation. But let's not overlook another truth. Sometimes we train people to take us for granted. By always saying yes, by never setting limits, by prioritizing their needs over our own, we unintentionally teach them that our time, our energy, and even our presence are endlessly available. And when something feels endless, people stop valuing it. Understanding why people behave this way doesn't excuse the behavior, but it gives us clarity. It shifts us from asking, what's wrong with them, to exploring, what pattern have we both participated in? That shift in perspective moves us from blame to responsibility. And responsibility is the birthplace of change. When we see the why, we stop reacting with pure emotion and start responding with intention. Instead of exploding with resentment or retreating into silence, we can ask, is this person unaware? Or are they indifferent? Is this about them, or is it about what I've allowed? Those answers guide us toward better choices. And here's the paradox: the people who take us for granted are often the very ones who care for us deeply. Their mistake isn't always a lack of love, it's a lack of awareness. And awareness is something we can awaken, in them and in ourselves, if we begin by first asking why. Awareness is the space between what happens to us and how we choose to respond. When someone takes us for granted, the natural impulse is to react: anger, frustration, withdrawal. But reaction without awareness is like throwing fuel on a fire. It burns fast, but it doesn't bring light. Think about the last time you felt overlooked. Maybe you did extra work at your job and no one noticed. Maybe you went out of your way for a friend and they didn't even say thank you. In that moment, your chest tightened, your thoughts raced, and you felt invisible. Those are real feelings, but before we let them drive us, we have to notice them. Awareness begins with observation. Instead of rushing into judgment, they don't care about me, or I'm not valued. We pause and ask, what exactly is happening here? Did they truly dismiss me, or are they simply unaware? Did I actually communicate what I needed, or did I expect them to read my mind? The power of awareness lies in separating fact from story. The fact may be they didn't thank me. The story we add is they don't appreciate me. Those are not the same. One is an event, the other is an interpretation. When we treat interpretation as truth, we trap ourselves in resentment. When we see the difference, we gain choice. Awareness also means looking inward. Why did this moment trigger me so deeply? Why does their lack of acknowledgement feel like a wound? Often it's not just about what they did, it's about what we've been carrying: old patterns, unmet needs, unresolved hurts. The present moment reopens those old files, and we respond to the past instead of the present. By practicing awareness, we learn to catch ourselves before the spiral begins. Instead of firing off a bitter text or retreating into silence, we take a breath. That breath gives us distance. That distance gives us perspective. And with perspective, we respond differently, not from hurt, but from clarity. It's not about ignoring our feelings. Awareness is not suppression, it's acknowledgement. It's saying, I feel taken for granted, and that matters. But instead of letting the feeling steer the wheel, we let it sit in the passenger seat. We acknowledge it, but we don't let it decide the direction. When awareness comes before reaction, our words carry more weight, and our actions carry more intention. We stop being prisoners of impulse and start becoming architects of our response. That shift is what transforms the cycle of resentment into an opportunity for understanding. The way people treat us often mirrors the way we treat ourselves. If we consistently undervalue our time, our energy, and our presence, others will learn to undervalue them too. Self-worth is not about arrogance or superiority. It is about recognizing that our value is not negotiable. Think about someone who always says yes. Yes to extra work, yes to last-minute favors, yes even when they're exhausted. On the surface, it looks generous. But underneath, it sends a subtle message: my needs don't matter as much as yours. Over time, that message teaches others to believe it too. Boundaries are born from self-respect. They are not walls to keep people out, but lines that remind us and others where we begin and end. Without boundaries, we become stretched thin, and resentment fills the gaps where respect should live. People don't usually cross boundaries to hurt us, they cross them because they're invisible. Self-worth is not about demanding recognition from others. It's about living in a way that shows we recognize ourselves. When we show up late to our own needs, but early to everyone else's, we declare, without words, that we are less important. People follow that declaration. The paradox is that when we put value on ourselves, people begin to value us more. When we say no with grace, when we protect our time with clarity, when we hold ourselves to a standard of respect, we silently teach others to do the same. And the ones who resist, they're often the ones benefiting from our lack of self-worth. But claiming self-worth is not easy. Many of us grew up learning that saying no is selfish, that standing up for ourselves is rude, that self-sacrifice is love. Those lessons run deep. And yet, the truth is, when we diminish ourselves, we can't fully serve others either. We give, but from emptiness instead of fullness. Self-worth is not just an inner belief, it's a practice. It shows up in how we speak about ourselves, in the promises we keep to ourselves, in the way we allow or refuse certain behaviors. It is reinforced not by what we say we deserve, but by what we tolerate. Every relationship we have, personal or professional, reflects the standard we set for ourselves. And when we raise that standard, some people will rise with us, while others will fall away. That's not loss, it's alignment. Silence may feel safe, but it is dangerous. When we don't speak up, we leave room for others to fill in the blanks. And when people fill in the blanks, they rarely get it right. Assumptions grow in the space where clarity is missing, and those assumptions shape how we are treated. Too often, we expect people to just know. We expect friends to notice when we're tired, colleagues to recognize when we're overloaded, family to sense when we need support. And when they don't, we feel invisible. But the truth is they're not mind readers. What feels obvious to us is often invisible to them. Clarity is not about confrontation, it's about connection. It's the courage to say, this is what I need, or this doesn't work for me, without anger, without accusation. Because when we speak from honesty and kindness, we're not pushing people away, we're giving them a chance to meet us where we truly are. The danger of silence is that it doesn't stay silent, it grows into resentment. Resentment that leaks out in sarcasm, in withdrawal, in passive-aggressive behavior. And by the time it surfaces, the other person is blindsided. They didn't know the line was crossed because we never drew it out loud. Clear communication is a gift, both to ourselves and to others. To ourselves, because it honors our needs. To others, because it gives them the chance to choose differently. When we say nothing, we rob them of that chance. When we speak clearly, we offer them the opportunity to rise to the relationship we want. But clarity also requires consistency. One honest conversation won't erase years of silence. Boundaries need to be reinforced not once, but over time. Each time we choose clarity over assumption, we strengthen the pattern. Each time we let silence win, the old pattern takes root again. Some people resist our clarity. They may dismiss it, laugh it off, or even push back. That resistance isn't proof that we shouldn't have spoken. It's proof that the silence once benefited them. And when silence is broken, comfort is disrupted. That discomfort is part of the process. Communicating with clarity doesn't guarantee we'll always get what we ask for. But it guarantees that we'll be seen, not as what people assume we are, but as who we truly are. And that is the foundation of any relationship built on respect. Every relationship we're in is shaped by the standards we set. Whether we realize it or not, we are always teaching people how to treat us. Not with lectures or lessons, but with what we allow, what we tolerate, and what we reinforce. When someone cancels on us repeatedly and we continue to say, it's fine, we are teaching them that our time isn't valuable. When a colleague interrupts us in meetings and we stay quiet, we are teaching them that our voice can be ignored. Every response or lack of response sets the tone for how the relationship unfolds. The tricky part is that most of this teaching happens unconsciously. We think we're being polite, flexible, or easygoing. But what feels like kindness can sometimes look like permission. And once permission is granted, it becomes the new normal. Consistency is where the power lies. Setting a standard once means little if we don't uphold it. If we ask for respect but then laugh off disrespect, we send mixed signals. People don't learn from what we say once, they learn from what we repeat. Teaching people how to treat us doesn't require aggression. It requires steadiness. It's calmly saying, I don't accept that, and holding to it. It's walking away from patterns that diminish us and leaning into patterns that affirm us. Over time, the message becomes clear this is the level of respect that stays, and anything less will fade. Some will adjust quickly. They'll rise to meet the new standard, not because they were cruel before, but because they simply didn't know where the line was. Others will resist. They'll test the boundary, push against it, or try to return to the old pattern. That resistance is not failure, it's proof that the teaching is working. The most difficult part is staying consistent when it feels uncomfortable. It's easier in the short term to give in, to avoid conflict, to let things slide. But every time we do, we undo the standard we're trying to set. Consistency builds credibility, and credibility builds respect. When we teach people how to treat us with clarity and consistency, we no longer live at the mercy of their behavior. We shape the relationship with intention, And in doing so, we reclaim the authority over how we are valued. There is a difference between being liked and being respected. Being liked often comes from pleasing others, smoothing over conflicts, and saying yes when we want to say no. Being respected comes from standing firm in who we are, even if it makes others uncomfortable. One is fragile and temporary, the other is steady and lasting. Many of us grow up believing that approval is the currency of connection. We learn to keep the peace, to make people happy, to earn smiles and nods. But approval is conditional. It changes with moods, expectations, and circumstances. The moment we stop meeting those conditions, approval disappears. Respect, on the other hand, doesn't require constant performance. It's not about doing what others want. It's about holding ourselves to a standard and living it consistently. People may not always like our choices, but they will come to trust them. And trust is far more powerful than temporary approval. The danger of chasing approval is that we lose ourselves in the process. We become so focused on what others want that we forget what we want. Our boundaries blur, our voice softens, and we begin to exist as an echo of other people's desires instead of a reflection of our own. Choosing respect means making peace with the fact that not everyone will like us. Some will misunderstand us. Some will walk away. And that's not a sign that we've failed, it's a sign that we've stopped living for their approval. Respect is built not on universal acceptance, but on authenticity. Approval often feels easier in the short term. Saying yes avoids conflict. Staying quiet avoids tension. But over time, the cost of approval is high. It erodes our self-worth, weakens our relationships, and leaves us surrounded by people who like the version of us that serves them, not the version that is true. Respect requires courage. It's the courage to risk disapproval by speaking up. The courage to hold a boundary even if someone calls us difficult. The courage to be honest, not for the sake of being liked, but for the sake of being real. That kind of courage often unsettles others, but it also inspires them. When we choose respect over approval, we shift the foundation of our relationships. We stop building on fragile ground and begin building on rock. People may not always applaud us, but they will know where we stand. And in the long run, being valued will always outlast being liked. There are moments when words are no longer enough, when boundaries have been explained, when patience has been tested, and yet nothing changes. In those moments, the most powerful statement we can make is not another conversation, it's our absence. Walking away is not weakness, it is a declaration of worth. We often stay too long in situations where we are undervalued because leaving feels like failure. We convince ourselves that if we just try harder, if we just explain one more time, the other person will finally understand. But sometimes, our presence only reinforces the very pattern we want to break. Walking away is not about punishing others, it is about protecting ourselves. It is saying, I will no longer participate in a dynamic that diminishes me. It is an act of self-respect, not retaliation. Because staying where we are not valued does not teach people to change. It teaches them that we will tolerate more. The fear of walking away often comes from the stories we tell ourselves. We fear being alone, being judged, or being seen as difficult. But the greater fear should be what happens if we stay, losing ourselves piece by piece until we forget what it feels like to be valued at all. Sometimes walking away is temporary, a pause that creates space for the other person to reflect, to recognize what they've lost, and to choose differently. Other times it is permanent, a closing of the door that frees us to find relationships where appreciation flows naturally. Both are valid and both require courage. It's important to remember that walking away is not always dramatic. It doesn't have to be an explosion of anger or a grand announcement. Often, it's quiet. It's fewer calls returned, less energy given, more focus placed on the spaces and people who honor our presence. Every time we choose to step back from a pattern that drains us, we send a message, not just to others, but to ourselves. The message is simple: I deserve better than this. That message, lived out through action, strengthens our sense of self, worth more than any words ever could. Walking away may close one chapter, but it always opens another. And in that new space, we create room for relationships built not on assumption or convenience, but on mutual respect and genuine gratitude. Gratitude is the glue that holds relationships together. Not the grand gestures, not the dramatic sacrifices, but the simple act of noticing and appreciating each other. When gratitude flows in both directions, relationships feel light, energizing, and alive. When it dries up, the weight of imbalance begins to settle in. We often think of gratitude as a nice extra, something polite to express when we remember. But in truth, it is essential. It tells the other person, I see you. I don't take what you give for granted. Without that acknowledgement, even the strongest bonds begin to fray because unspoken appreciation feels like absence. Gratitude is not about keeping score. It's not about saying, I did this so you owe me that. Scorekeeping turns relationships into transactions, and transactions drain intimacy. Real gratitude comes from sincerity, not obligation. It's not measured by size, but by presence. A word, a gesture, a look that says, you matter. But gratitude must be mutual. When one person is always giving thanks while the other assumes it's owed, the balance tips. Over time, the giver feels unseen and the receiver feels entitled. Relationships survive on balance, and that balance depends on both people recognizing that appreciation is not optional. It is oxygen. What What's often overlooked is that gratitude doesn't just lift the one who receives it, it transforms the one who gives it. When we practice noticing and acknowledging the good in others, we rewire ourselves to see abundance instead of scarcity. Gratitude softens resentment before it grows and deepens connection before it fades. In healthy relationships, gratitude is a rhythm. It doesn't need to be constant praise or dramatic thanks, it just needs to be steady. A thank you for a small favor, a smile when someone shows up, a word of recognition when effort is given. These small acts accumulate into a powerful statement. I don't just expect you, I value you. When gratitude is missing, silence grows heavy. The unspoken begins to feel like indifference, and indifference is one of the greatest threats to connection. It's not anger that erodes most relationships, it's the slow drip of being unappreciated. Gratitude, spoken aloud, stops that drip before it empties the well. A relationship where gratitude moves both ways creates a cycle of energy instead of exhaustion. Each act of appreciation fuels the other, not because anyone is keeping track, but because both are invested in balance. And when balance is present, relationships not only last, they thrive.